Webinar on citizen science that we are doing this week. Today, we are going to discuss and learn about opportunities and challenges for marine citizen science. And I will show you the agenda shortly, but first I would like to do some housekeeping. First of all, this webinar will be recorded, and yes, you will be able to get a replay of the recording. We will also provide the slide deck from the presentations, so you don't have to stress with that. In the chat, we want you to be very much engaged. We want to actually have a discussion with you. So we encourage you to ask questions in the chat on the right-hand side, and we will take those up in the final session in the discussion phase. That will be about half of the time of this 1.5 hours that we have reserved for this webinar. We will post also this material on the ILIAD website, so you can enjoy it there. But in general, we encourage you to share this as widely as you can. So it's a free and open material for those of you who are interested in diving deeper into citizen science. So as I said, I will share with you my screen, and let's see how this is going now. Because I have only one screen this time. Normally I have two in my setup. So let's see. And I will do a, how do I do it? Slideshow like this. Right. You see, this is the agenda for today. I have already welcomed you, but I will also give you a little bit of an insight of what the ILIAD is. Not everybody does necessarily know that. Then we will start and learn about the impact. So designing citizen science for impact by Parkinson. So we will dive deeper into a specific type of pilot using citizen science. We are going to learn a lot about jellyfish today. Lessons from the Jellyfish Digital Twin of the Ocean by Dori Edelist at the University of Haifa. Then another jellyfish citizen science activity, monitoring jellyfish in Portugal using citizen science data. And that's by Antonina dos Santos. Welcome, you are a guest from outside ILIAD. And finally, but not least, we are looking at the human-computer interaction to boost citizen science engagement by Hugo Paredes from INESCTEC. And then a discussion, as I said, and we hope that you will be inspired and learn both something general about citizen science and the impact. And of course, you will involuntarily learn a lot about jellyfish. So, and I will go then first through a few words. Oops, this was a wrong presentation about digital twins. Digital twins of the ocean provides a virtual environment that represents the ocean, capable of running complex predictive and management scenarios. And it's an innovative system that we build, integrate across many disciplines, sensors, models, and infrastructures. And for ILIAD, it's particularly focused on making all this interoperable. It's data sensitive and cost-effective digital twins. We are making plural here. ILIAD in a seashell is the interoperability digital twins. We are using and federating existing systems, but we are also creating new data and new information, of course. We will provide our findings and make it open for other relevant information, data, products, services in the marketplace that will be open to all. And we will provide concrete solutions to challenges. For instance, how do we manage jellyfish? How can we discover and know more about biodiversity, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the three main components of ILIAD. Here you see the diversity of the thematic and local twins that we are developing. Some of them are operational already or partially operational, and some of them are more on the concept or in an earlier stage in the development. But you see it ranging from energy, like wind farms, coastal sediment transport, plastic management, fisheries, of course, insurance, and a plethora. Quick numbers, I won't go in details. It's a huge project. We are 56 partners. The budget is close to 19 million euros. So it's a big effort. And with that, I will stop my screen sharing because I had the wrong one. So I will just introduce you, Parky, without my slides. Parky, so Stephen Parkinson, we call him Parky, and he is working for Earthwatch. He's a specialist in citizen science, and particularly dedicating now recently a lot on how citizen science have an impact on our society. Parky, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll just get my slides up. Perfect. So yeah, yesterday we talked a lot about citizen science as a kind of a general introduction to citizen science and saw some examples. And today's theme of opportunities and challenges for citizen science, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about designing citizen science for impact and what the impacts are that we can expect from a citizen science project, because there are many impacts that can come from citizen science, some of them quite different from more traditional scientific methods, and some of them perhaps unexpected even to the people running the projects. So they're sort of worth discussion. And most of what I present today will really be based on work that was carried out as part of the MIX project. This was a Horizon 2020 project that ran for the last 3.5 years, looking all at measuring the impact of citizen science and coming up with tools and methodologies to measure the impact of citizen science. But a lot of what the project also considered was therefore how projects can also sort of design themselves to consider specific impacts. And as part of the MIX project, we also developed an online tool, a self-assessment tool that citizen science projects can use to assess their impacts. So there are over 200 indicators that we consider for all the sort of impacts that a citizen science project can have. And this platform kind of guides projects through those indicators through an interface that you see on the screen now. And then at the end, presents them a kind of personalized impact summary with personalized recommendations about how they could sort of increase their impact in certain areas, and also a series of quantified assessments of their impact in certain areas. But that's, I won't really get into the detail of that tool today. I just shared it as something interesting for those of you who might be more involved in citizen science and kind of it might be of interest to you. But one of the central concepts we had in the MIX project was considering different areas of impact, what we call domains of impact. And we considered it as the impact of citizen science across 5 domains, which were society, environment, governance, science, and economy. And whilst the sort of balance of impacts between each of these domains might be different in certain projects, there might be more of a focus on society or science or any of the other domains. Generally, we found that almost every project we spoke to was having some impact in all of these areas. Sometimes positive impact, sometimes not positive, but projects that are making changes in all of these areas. And to kind of elaborate on that now, I thought I would just go through some examples of the sort of indicators that we consider in terms of impact change in each of these domains. just to give a sense of the kind of breadth of impact that citizen science projects can have. So firstly, if we consider the societal impacts, this is often really central to a lot of what citizen science projects do and what makes them so special and different from traditional scientific methods. But there can be a real change for the individuals taking part in terms of their engagement with the topic of the project, and also their knowledge and attitudes about the topic of the project as well. For example, for the jellyfish projects we will hear about later, you know, the engagement of participants with jellyfish as a species and their knowledge of identifying the species, or their attitudes to sort of seeing them as a pest or seeing them as a kind of piece of natural beauty, might also change throughout the project. Often an aspect is also promoting a change in behavior of the participants, either directly through the project activities or in other resources that the project shares. I'm thinking particularly here, you see often projects around plastic pollution where there are sort of then further actions to kind of encourage behavior change for participants. It's also important to consider participants' health and well-being. I mean, this is something that in certain projects can have a direct impact on participants' physical health, although that's less common, but there are citizen science projects out there looking at physical health, and things like air pollution or other types of pollution will also have an impact on health. But also we find there's just a positive impact on participants' mental well-being from taking part in these community-based initiatives or volunteering as part of this initiative which they feel is making a change in the world. So that's another sort of societal impact to consider. And beyond the impacts on the individuals themselves, you also have this impact of community building, that you're creating connections between individuals who might otherwise not have any communication together, and giving them a collective identity and a collective sort of purpose around this citizen science project. So that gives just a broad overview of just some of the societal impacts that can come from citizen science. We also consider something called governance impacts, which combines both institutional change and also sort of policy change. So in terms of institutional change, for the projects involved in running the project, if they haven't sort of run many projects sort of engaging with citizens before, it can lead to many like institutional changes within that project, in terms of how they publish their data and the sort of licenses around that data in terms of open data, in terms of involving the public in the way they sort of carry out decisions and incorporating more elements of co-design or sort of consultation. And not only that, but then there's a whole section of citizen science which looks at sort of trying to inform and influence policy as well. There can sometimes be a slight activist element to citizen science, or a sort of sense that the research being done is to lobby policymakers and to make some change in the way that decisions are made, either by sort of public authorities or even private organizations. But in all of this, there's also this sense that there's maybe a change in power dynamics, that people who aren't normally involved in conversations or into certain decisions, through their participation in this research project, they're able to kind of have a new role in the way that decisions are made. The next one is environmental impacts. Now, this is actually probably the impact area where it's not guaranteed that every citizen science project will impact this area, because there are some citizen science projects that aren't really focused on an environmental topic. But within the context of the digital twin of the ocean, in almost every case, we are talking about something with an environmental issue at the heart of it. And here citizen science can provide better data to inform environmental management. It can again encourage behavior change or actions from participants that have an impact on the environment, for example, beach cleans as part of a plastic project. And again, that sort of element of governance change, sort of impacting policy, citizen science can provide that data to sort of encourage compliance assurance for policy, to make sure that pollution is caught and that actions are taken to clean up that pollution as well. So next, there are scientific impacts. And again, just as societal impacts are often core to citizen science, almost every citizen science project also has scientific impacts. I guess the clue is in the name. And there are all the typical impacts that are often kind of used as KPIs in projects around new data and new analyses and publications, and all of these kind of standard metrics of research that we know are not necessarily always the most informative. But beyond that as well, there's also this sense that citizen science can increase the societal value of research, both in terms of communicating it to other people, but also in terms of perhaps designing research projects in a way that answers issues that are relevant to citizens. An increased democratization of research, and that sort of people are allowed and able to and empowered to take part in research. And also through that democratization of research, the appearance of new research ideas and perspectives from people who previously might have been excluded from the process. So yeah, as well as the kind of standard scientific impacts that you might expect from a research project, even in this domain, there are sort of new areas of impact that might appear. And finally, and this one can be sometimes the hardest to conceptualize in a citizen science project, there can be economic impacts also from potentially the reduced cost of data. And some people say that the data collection of citizen science itself is cheaper than traditional methods. This is not always the case because of the effort and time required to engage the citizens. So it's not necessarily more cost effective, but there's often a culture of open access data within citizen science and making data available. And that data availability is certainly something that then, if the data is being used by other organizations, can kind of reduce costs for them. Other sort of aspects of economic potential can be the development of new technology with sort of opportunities for exploitation in other settings. Considerations of the financial sustainability of the projects. I mean, these projects require funds to run them, and there are ways that they can be designed to kind of reduce their cost, which is in itself an economic impact. And then at the more kind of extreme end, but we have seen this in certain projects, there can be things around the increased economic well-being of participants. And this is particularly true where their sort of participation in the project is linked to their job in some way. So for example, in the marine citizen science sector, perhaps running a project with fishers or something, where they the results of the project also have an impact on the way they carry out their work activities, and potentially therefore have an impact on their economic well-being. And there's a potential also here for job creation, either within the projects that are running citizen science projects or in other related organizations. But we do see this as an occasional impact from these projects as they grow and are successful and kind of get more and more funding and support. So that was an overview of quite a diverse set of impacts that can come from projects, and probably quite an abstract overview as well, because it was just these sort of impact indicators. And hopefully we'll see some of those kind of brought to life in the examples that we'll see from the two jellyfish cases later today. But if you're interested in any of the things that I was presenting today and want to learn anything more about what was shown from the MIX project, I suggest you go to this website, about.mix.tools, where we really have kind of tried to make available everything that we considered in the project. So you can see a full list of all the indicators that we consider and the sources of those indicators and how we develop them. So if that's of interest to you, please feel free to visit their website and also to contact me. I'd be very happy to talk more. I think that's all I have time for, but yeah, I really look forward to hearing what the others have to present and then joining in with the discussion at the end.
Thank you very much, Parky. It was a very good overview, in my opinion. Make it clearer what kind of impact we can talk about. Thank you everyone for participating also in the poll. We are doing polls during each of these presentations, and I will share the results of the first one now with you, so that you can see how we all did. And the question was, have you experienced or seen that citizen science has impacted your field of activity? And almost 60% confirmed that this has been observed. 28% are not quite sure, and there is a 14% who have not seen it yet. So that was a promising result, I think. So thank you very much for participating in this poll. And now we are going to dive into the jellyfish cases. First, I would like to introduce our first expert on jellyfish, Dori Edelist. Just hold on so you can see for yourself. He's a marine ecologist and with a solid data-driven publication record in bioinvasion, fisheries, and of course, jellyfish ecology. Dori works at the University of Haifa, and he's teaching also there. And in general, his scientific interest includes all of the above, including citizen science. Dori, I give the floor to you. We are excited.
Thank you, Bente, and thank you, Parky, for the great introduction. This is no chance, no coincidence that we are diving into the world of jellyfish right now, because jellyfish are a really good fit for citizen science, at least so far as motivating the people to report. They have a vested interest of getting a digital twin going, of getting the sea out into the screen, and then getting themselves back out into sea according to what they see on the screen. So in that sense, we have engaged a group of citizen science initiatives for jellyfish observations over the past year. We've been collaborating with them on sort of trying to locate the shared challenges and the opportunities, and this is what this talk is about. So diving right in, we had a meeting with almost everyone in the group, and the main challenges we identified were, first of all, getting people to report over a long time and maintaining a good connection with the people. And that usually comes through dissemination, which can take many forms, as I'll show you in a couple of slides. Data quality and validation are always an issue. And there are several ways of going about validating your citizen science data. The quality is always going to be, it's always going to be a challenge, since you will be receiving different streams, either from trained or highly trained specialists that you have engaged with, or with the public. So your approach to your citizen science project will determine the type of data and the quality of data that you will get. And the higher the quality, the less the challenge of validation. So I will present our approach in the Meduzot Israeli citizen science project, in which we are casting a very wide net and actually inviting the entire public to report. And so they can make an impact on a jellyfish map in real time. And then in retrospect, in the end of every day, we sort of clear out if there are erroneous or low quality reports, then we filter them out at the end of the day. So the map sort of stays updated. By that, we get a lot of data. this is one way of going about the business of getting plenty of data and trusting that 90-something% of it will be of good quality, filtering it in retrospect. And the other option that I hope Antonina will present later is more about getting really, really high quality data, only high quality data in there, and not letting the weeds in, so we don't need to weed them out afterwards. Just so these are two complementary approaches, and both can be taken by citizen science projects. And when you take the high road that Antonina is taking, I feel that there is room there for getting artificial intelligence involved in the identification process. There are several of those out there, including Google Lens or iNaturalist and really large AI projects that are more general. And what we are doing is trying to get Jellyfish in there, because right now, if you go to Google Lens or to iNaturalist, it's doubtful that you will get the right species of jellyfish. So we're training algorithms right now, and hopefully that will be able to step in and cover some of this gap. Processing the data and actual utilization of the data is something that in ILIAD we try to address through a marketplace approach, whereby we show the potential uses of the data and how it can be used by different stakeholders, not only the public, but also actual paying stakeholders. And that could sort of help with funding, because as Parky mentioned before and covered pretty well this subject, funding is a key issue if you want to get a long-term project going. And this will always be an issue, and many projects have simply died away due to lack of funding, and it needs to be something continuous, and it's always a challenge. Standardization of data is across different initiatives, because we've met with 11 out of 14 different initiatives that we identified, and that's only for Southern European seas in the catalog that we have created within ILIAD in Work Package 3 for citizen science initiatives. There were plenty more. So just for the citizen science jellyfish observation initiatives, we had plenty of different data streams, and they sort of look like this. We created a data schema for all the initiatives, where we look at the contact details, the date, time, the location, and you can have different types of data going in here. And before I presented the Darwin core as a possible solution, that is only halfway. That's half of the work to get the data into the right columns and in the right names. And the other and more challenging half, which we are now encountering, is coming up with a way of streamlining the different data streams and getting them into a certain harmonized standard, whereby we can, for example, if we take the location and it's either auto location lat and long from GPS, or it's different zones, then you have to address the lowest common denominator. Good thing about the Darwin core is that it enables all types of data stream. We are doing that now with a Polish company named PSNC, and that we are working with, and we are getting the data ready to be standardized. This is also true, of course, for species which are different in different regions, and the quantity or density, which is the hardest to standardize, because looking at jellyfish from above the water or from inside the water, if you actually get goggles in and dive in there, you're going to see something completely different. So while challenging, this can be done, and usually by addressing the lowest common denominator, but sometimes also by just choosing the data streams that can be allowed into the standardization program process. So size bins, same. And we've been asked several questions general questions about citizen science, and the scale of citizen science is always a matter of question for people coming from outside the business and wondering whether could be something that is typically describing an extreme event, so that you will have people ready out there to go out there and to see and look at whatever it is. It could be a weather event, it could be pollution, and it could be a jellyfish outbreak, or is it just something that's slowly evolving? I think a really great story to show the temporal and spatial scales happened before we had citizen jellyfish science initiatives, and it happened in the Black Sea, when we had one species of comb jelly that was wreaking havoc on the sea, and then several years after that, a different species arrived and sort of mitigated the problem, because it regulated the amount of the first comb jelly in the sea, and the situation slowly went back to normal. And this took over a decade, this process. But both fishers who were hurt by the first jellyfish appearance and scientists who were working on the project had no idea what was actually going on outside of specific surveys that they did for the fisheries, and that was over a very limited time scale and spatial scale. So if we had these initiatives back then, we could have told the story in a different way, maybe help the fishers realize what is going on, help the fishery recover a little earlier, and possibly also alleviate concerns within the public, which were rampant at the time. As to the commercial aspect, what we did was we looked at different types of stakeholders other than the public that gets stung. These could be power plants and desalination plants that the water intakes get clogged by jellyfish. So we identified these across the Mediterranean and Southern European seas, and sort of looked at the overlap between them and existing citizen science projects, in order to see whether we can cater to this demand of knowing what's going on with jellyfish. I actually today I received an email from a colleague in the Israeli electric company to ask whether we can help them project when jellyfish will come to the power station, so they can prepare bubble screens that they have just started working on. Bubble screens, if you don't know, they are simply bubbles spewed from the bottom, from pipes on the bottom of the sea, in order to float the jellyfish up above the intake pipes. Aquaculture, of course, gets hurt by jellyfish, and that's also something that we take into notice. There's actually one of our ex-project partners called JellyX is working on supplying jellyfish prediction services to aquaculture. And if we look at the way we are spread out, we are mostly across the northern Mediterranean, a bit in the southern Black Sea and the eastern Atlantic. So we have a pretty good coverage of the area. Southern Mediterranean is still a challenge, but as these things grow, and the more we get our little community going, the better the chances of getting more partners involved in the practice. Other questions revolved around whether citizen science is predictive or diagnostic. Well, it can be both. As we showed, the prediction aspect can be facilitated by the diagnosis of the present state. As to the reliability of information, the more you train citizens, the better information you get from them. And later I will show you how we got actually more and more gold users, we call them, or trained citizens, as time went along. And this is something that comes with the longevity of the project. So the longer we can maintain this, the better results we get. They can be either spontaneous or organized, but almost all projects that I know of citizen science are organized. The spontaneousness part it's something that starts in the beginning of the project and maybe propels you into action. And then usually they are very well organized. If they are not, they will not survive, and they won't make it to our data catalog anyway. The identity of the citizens is important, but it's also important that we keep it private. the privacy of the people is something that, of the citizens, is something we want to zealously protect, unless they are interested in becoming world famous, in which case we can actually boost and promote this by having like a wall of fame, where the most active active protagonists are being hailed as heroes of the environment. And this is something that once again speaks to the challenge of recruiting citizens. So successful projects rely mostly on a suite of methods in order to boost the data accuracy. This is from Kosmala et al. From a citizen science paper that sort of looks at the quality of data. And once again, if you know the people and you have trained them, you can get better quality data. And the way to know the people and to get more people involved is to go out there in the field and be present. Now, we can do it either by going to kindergartens or surf clubs, and the communities that we create they should be grassroots communities that are already out there. They could be surfers, swimmers. For jellyfish, it's really easy because a lot of people are affected by them. So you find these communities, they are already out there, and you can find them also through social networks. This is the number of users that we had throughout the project life. And here for 2022, we got another boost. And this is the number of gold users that we had. And in 2022, when we started the ILIAD project, we really gave it a good boost of training the people even more and meeting more people to train. And we really see that we get almost half of our reports, they come from people that we fully trust and we know and we've spoken with. As with social networks, well, there's good and there's bad. I think almost all projects that we spoke with have some sort of presence out there, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And among the advantages, for example, there's this species on the left of a jellyfish species we did not know exists, that we only found through citizens reporting to us. And we always get a lot of conversation going in there. And it could be a bad thing because it takes your time as a scientist, but it's always thrilling to experience the world through the eyes of the citizens, and then you understand their needs better. So social networks, not a must, but something you want to have. It's definitely something that can contribute to the project. Regarding, do I have more time? Bente, are we out? Yeah. Okay, can't hear you. So,
yeah, you should wrap it up, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So what we did was we basically got a lot of training material out there in different languages that we got from the different initiatives, and we trained the people using that material. In order to get to more people, you do stuff like posters or jellyfish photography competitions, and this is all very useful when we're talking about an animal that stings people. The good fit of jellyfish, once again, and here's the results of an epidemiological survey that we were able to come up with 480 people that answered the questionnaire, and huge and pretty easy it went to get to those people because they were already among our users and the people we knew, and we got them to report their stings, and we were able to come up with a field treatment protocol for them. So once again, jellyfish are a good fit. So thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer questions later or discuss with you these issues.
Thank you very much, Dori. I'm sure we could talk about jellyfish for more than a day even. Again, and we still have more jellyfish on our plate today. I will like to share with you, before we give the floor to Antonina, the results from our little poll. And that poll was about continuous citizen science data, because that's what's the profile of your project, Dor. So would continuous citizen science data be useful for your work? And 75% says that indeed it would be useful. 16% are not sure, and 9% don't know yet. But that was an overwhelming yes. So interesting to know. But thank you so much for participating in the poll. And we will continue to talk about jellyfish. And for some reason I cannot. Yes, okay. So I would like to introduce to you Antonina. Just hold on, I will share my screen again, which graciously accepted our invitation to talk about jellyfish in the Atlantic, I guess, in Portugal, the other side of the Mediterranean, at least. So let me see. Antonina dos Santos, she is a research scientist at the Portuguese Institute for Sea and Atmosphere, IPMA, and she leads the plankton and crustacean, I'm very bad at this word, laboratory. And Antonina has studied taxonomy and ecology of crustaceans larvae in Portugal for 20 years. What is interesting for us today on this, and you will be able to read more about Antonina, but she created a Jellyfish citizen science project to monitor the strandings of jellyfish in the Portuguese coasts. And that, I believe, is what we are going to learn more about now, Antonina. So I give you the floor to introduce us to your project.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, thank you for the invitation. I was trying to put the presentation in visualization mode for everyone to see it. From what I understood, it's to present the project and what we have been doing here in Portugal and the Northeastern Atlantic area. So I don't know if the presentation that you are about to see correspond to your deepest beliefs or hopes.
I'm sure it will be relevant. I'm sure it will be relevant.
But in the end, I can answer the questions and provide more information if necessary. So the project was created by me and some students at that time to try to monitor the jellyfish, because we had some puzzling occurrences at that time, especially not with really jellyfish, but with Portuguese man-of-war, Physalia species, that it's very common here. So the way to acquire data on this species was to create the citizen science project, and our goals are both scientific and literacy ones, to provide information to the public. But we are collecting this information. We want to acquire knowledge on their biodiversity, distribution, and dynamics in the marine ecosystems, especially the coastal ones. And it's our objective to model and predict the occurrence of these blooms. That's why one of the main reasons that we are acquiring this data a long time. In the beginning, it was easy. We had some funds to start the project. The first 3 years are always easy, but then to maintain the project, it's more my extra time, because the funds are not available and the project is not innovative or something that requires the funds from Portuguese agencies, at least from our agencies. It's not innovative enough to keep receiving funds. What we do is that we ask citizens to provide information. In the now we have a mobile app where the scientists, the observers that we call them our observers, to send the information through the app. And the app at the same time provides information on the species that occur in Portugal, and provides also the latest views of the jellyfish that are occurring, the gelatinous species. It's more correct like that. The gelatinous species that are occurring in our areas. We also have a dedicated email address for everyone to send us information and to answer any question they have on the species. We are on the social media and several social media, and we have a website, not always very updated, but we have the website. What we request the citizens is that they give us the information, the date, time, and place, as everyone else request, the number of individuals cited, and we request a photo of the species, and also with an object of known size to serve as a scale, and we could have an idea of the size of the individual. Sometimes we request some samples, and we have a protocol for collecting the samples, and we also give information on how to collect the samples to citizens. We give information and we give workshops for everyone to attend on how to distinguish the species, which species are the most dangerous for human health, and what to do in case people are confronting or in contact with one of these species. We also give information on how to collect the samples when necessary. And every time that everyone asks something, we are able to answer it. We collect the data. The data is coming from all these ways, all these different ways. The data are collected in an Excel file, and the photos and the videos are also stored. The information that come from the app, and that it's available on the app itself, it only be available when validated by the team, by me and my colleagues, when we are available to do this, because we don't want to propagate misleading information, and also to prevent some bad things. For example, we had 2 or 3 records that were people that went to the aquariums, took a picture of the species on the aquarium, and then said that have cited this species. Well, to avoid this, we have these validated first, and then we publish the information. What we do, the validation of our data in the Excel file, we have mainly two levels of validation. One, it corresponds to the identification of the species, and the other, the confidence level that we have on the information. In the identification of the species, we have a yes, a no, and some maybes or whatever. It depends on the photos and on the quality of the photos. For example, if the photo is clear and the species is clearly seen, as here, we assess that this is for sure a Portuguese man of war. When we have no photo, we always, the identification of the species is no. We didn't have even if the observer, the citizen identify the species, we didn't. So we will put a no. And the maybes is like you are seeing here, fragment of the species that we cannot say what it is because it doesn't display any taxonomic character that allow us to clearly identify the species. So this will be these maybes that we will have there on our data. And then the confidence level, we have 3 levels. The first one, the green one, is that all the information is reliable and complete. This means that the person, the observer, send all the information. The information is really easy to see. For example, the photo, we can look and we can see the preference of the photo, and we can locate the date that it's correct, everything it's okay. We have the level 2 when the information is reliable, but it's incomplete. It means that, for example, the person said, oh, it was on this date, but didn't give us the hour or didn't provide any photo or something like that. And we have the level 3 that corresponds to information that we don't we feel it's unreliable and it's also incomplete. We put this information on our data set. We don't discard it, but we give them lowest confidence level. The Jellyfish in numbers, only for you to have an idea what we have so far. We have the contribution of more than 2,000 citizens and or associations, groups of citizens that do some information on the marine coastals and areas. We have more than 13,000 records until now, and the records are distributed in this graph, and you can see that 2020, the pandemic year, is the one we have the biggest number of records. Everyone was available to go out and post some information. And here we have the more or less relative percentage of species. As you can see, the Portuguese man of war is our main species here. And the mainland Portugal has a big diversity of species than the islands, Açores and Madeira Islands that are in the Atlantic Eastern also, and it's part of Portugal. Since we are a group of researchers, we are trying to do some science. And until now, we have collaborated with other colleagues from other projects. And this collaboration was possible to have until now for peer-reviewed literature published with data from Jellyfish. For us, it's a big improvement, and it shows that we are in the good path. And it's all. Thank you for everyone that sent us information, to all that collaborated with us until now, and for you for listening.
Thank you so much, Antonina. So definitely an impressive project with an animal that we are, even here in Norway, we are learned to be afraid of this warship. I have posted a poll for Antonina as well, and I will publish this with now so you can see. thank you for participating. And the question was, will you trust artificial intelligence for validation of your observations? And 36% trust artificial intelligence. 8% think that the technology is not mature enough yet. And 56% would like the scientists to cross-check the artificial intelligence results. I think this is also very interesting, and thank you again for participating. So last, I'm looking at the time, so I will be I'm trying to be very quick now to introduce the last but not the least speaker, sort of summarizing some of the things that we have been implicitly and explicitly talking about. And that is Hugo will talk about the human-machine, human-computer interaction as a tool to boost the engagement of the citizens. You've both heard that it requires, well, we've heard that it requires, it can be challenging to keep the interest. So Hugo Paredes, he is a pro-rector of the Digital Transition and Administrative Transformation at the University of Trás-os-Montes e Alto. He is also a senior researcher at the INESCTEC and a former assistant of and coordinator of the Center for Computer Graphics and Information Systems. And today I'm focusing on what you are going to talk about. You are an expert on this human-computer relationship, Hugo. So I'll give the floor to you now, and we will all get inspired, I'm sure. The floor is yours, Hugo.
Thank you very much, Antonina. Thank you very much, Bente. Sorry, I was just passing from the last presentation to this. I will keep my time very strict in order to not to extend too much my presentation and just to give you the insights of what we have here today. And my main goal here is to talk a little bit about human-computer interaction. I will focus not in every aspect of human-computer interaction to boost citizen science engagement, but just in those that I think can actually have higher impact, and then we can discuss in the after my presentation other aspects, and I will also give you some questions about this. So, but to start and in order to understand the mechanisms, we should first understand the reasons, the motivation for actually participating in citizen science campaign. So why should I participate in citizen science? And if we look at the literature, we can see two main motivations for participating in citizen science. One is intrinsics, you just have valuable or satisfaction to participate, and the other is extrinsic, when you feel there are some other aspects, so some future perspectives of participating and of your benefits for participating in this citizen science. And the most common motivations that we can see here is health risk, and so the concern for welfare of others, even if there is no immediate or personal benefit to the participant. So contributing to scientific knowledge, environmental and conservation issues, and we have seen lots of these here today. Of course, we also have the reputation, the social perspective of citizen science, and how you are seen by others, by the society, and what's your role on that, on your participation, and at last, but not at least, the enjoyment. So if you enjoy participating, and when you think about enjoyment, most of the time you think about games. You think about how you can do this as gaming, and of course, using these not only for playing, but also for learning, for exploring, and for contributing to science. So, but let's focus a little bit in gaming. And when I'm talking about gaming, I'm not only talking about games as we see them. So, for example, Pokemon Go. I'm thinking about using the strategies and using the elements we see on games, and we can use them on these contexts that are not games. So we have seen some of these things, as Dori was talking about the rankings. So when we think about rankings, we think about a game, and we have the first and the last. So this is one example, but I will give you just some more examples of these and how we can use this gamification that can be used not only in games, but also in applications, and some of these mechanisms and how we can associate this with the strategies for citizen science. So let us go through this gamification and the mechanisms we can use here. So gamification is most of all about user engagement. So how we can engage users, how can we involve them, how can we enthusiasm them and have their interest to participate. But it's also about rewarding. So how we can incentivize to the desired behaviors and motivate users to achieve their goals. The achievements are actually the milestones or the goals that users can reach through their engagement, and can be the forms of badges, of levels, of certifications, of something that they can show they accomplish and they are proud of. So achievements are something that actually motivates our users. But on the other side, there's also the learning perspective, and we have learned from Dori and from Antonina presentation that when we have users that have knowledge about what they are doing, they can produce better data. They can contribute to better data. So they can be learning at the same time they are participating. So this process can also be a learning process. They can be also have some activities, some achievements that can be done by learning itself and to produce the high quality data. And finally, the challenge, the competition. So we like to compete. We like to be challenged. And of course, this also contributes for enhancing the motivation and the engagement of our users. And now, if we see our the mechanisms that we can use for this, we can have, for example, for the challenges, we can have the milestones. We can have tasks that are simple, and we can just push the users to perform better. And how we can do this? We can give them points. And the points reflect the status, the expertise, and can be exchanged by goods or by other things they can have into the environment itself. Of course, they can also have the social part. And the social part is part of having badges, having stickies, having things that they can show, and they can have the sense of accomplishment, and they are meaningful to the users. Other thing is the leaderboards, as I said. So the social commitment, the social validation, and the competition we have. And we want to know also how we are progressing, how are my goals, and how far am I from reaching the goal. And there's one thing that is important here is that people dislike incompetence. So I want to complete my goal, and I want to know how much do I need to reach that goal. And finally, the rewards. So something that is that I can collect, and I know that is unique. So one thing that is emerging right now, and probably you have listened about this, and this is very common in games, is the NFTs. So NFTs are things that are digital, but I know they are unique. So with these, actually, is a reward that's it's only mine, and I can show them to the social recognition. And this is the other part. So how can I have this social recognition and the role of the social media? So the social media can have an important role to reach a broader population, so to reach everyone, because most of the time people don't participate because they don't know about the project. They don't know they can also participate. So this can be a way for people to participate, to be motivated, and to be engaged. On the other side, if you see this from a game perspective, in most of current games, we have a very strong social feeling because you create not communities but teams, and they work together to reach some objective. So this team building that we can have in not only in games but in a gamified environment actually can increase the awareness and foster the engagement of our users. So just to complete this and to talk, the gamification is not just use one of these tactics. It's the combination of the mechanics that we can use together, and they together must represent a tactic that can motivate and can passionate citizens to participate. So these mechanisms must work together and not as isolated interventions to create a citizen science approach for getting some data from the citizens. So just for wrapping up and giving you some open discussion topics is, so in citizen science, should we gamify our experience? Should we have games or games with a purpose, or should we have just use gamified mechanisms in our applications? How can we use this team or community building in citizen science? What is we also have already some answers for this social media effect from Dori, but I can also have further feedback from you about this. And at last is about the user interface and how the user interface. This is an aspect that I didn't talk, and I didn't talk in my my presentation, and how this user interface can have impact in the quality, in the data quality. And the picture you see here is Pokemon. As you know, Pokemon, we can just get inspired and get some inspiration of what we can do, catching them all. Okay, so just a last slide with further inspiration, and as this slide will be distributed, just 3 examples that we can follow and we can check before we have the portal with the examples that we are doing in ILIAD. And thank you very much. Sorry for my 2 minutes out of the time.
Thank you very much, Hugo. It's very interesting